Let's see what's new on the Monster Mill.
Sorry for recording off the screen. The computer that I've got for the CNC works great for a CNC machine, but it doesn't have the speed required to do a screen capture and run the CNC, so I've got to film off the screen. So sorry about that, but let's take a look, okay? So in the panel here, we're going to play with the PEC drill first. So you've got a piece of material, let's just say, for example, a piece of metal. You wouldn't want to jam the bit all the way into it because you're going to, number one, put a lot of extra loading on the bit. Number two, you're going to get swarf, and it's going to get really long, can get wrapped around things. So what you want to do is go in a little bit, come up, break the chip, come in a little bit, break the chip. Normally you'd be writing G-code for this, but I've got it already installed in the panel. So let's take a look how it works. So we come in here, and let's say that we want to drill a hole, and the hole is going to be 15 millimeters deep. I hit enter. That sets it in place. Now I'm drilling a piece of wood here, which is fairly soft. So we'll do a peck size of every 5 millimeters, so it should peck 3 times. All right. The speed, I can probably speed that up to about 800. Okay, and we'll set the RPM. And don't forget, you have to hit enter, otherwise it won't lock it in. So at that point, all we have to do is hit begin PEC drill. Now what I need to do is I need to turn on my rotary so that the bit will spin to activate my spindle. So it's going to get a little bit noisy, and let me get that started and then I'll show it to you. Okay, so we've got the Z-axis set pretty close. I've got it actually a hair above the material, but this is just for a demo to show you what's going on. I've got this set up. Now we want to do a PEC drill. So as you just saw, we did all of our settings. All I have to do is click the button now. And there you go, a 15 millimeter hole, PEC drilled, and you didn't have to write any cheat code. Pretty slick, huh? So now you can see how the PEC drilling works. I took that routine and I expanded it. Have you ever had a fitting that had a bunch of holes laid out in a circle and you wanted to have matching screws that, you know, go into the part? Normally you have to sit there and CAD it all out. Now you don't. Let me show it to you. So we come over to the bolt hole circle and we're going to give it the number of holes. Let's say we're going to do an oddball number. We'll say 5 holes. Hit enter to set it. How far of a radius is it? Well, we'll say, yeah, 10 millimeters works kind of good. So we'll leave that alone. The depth that we want to go, we'll go to 20 this time. And then the PEC, again, because it's wood, we'll set the PEC size as 5. And don't forget to hit enter, which sets it into place. Our feed, again, we're talking wood here, so 800 millimeters is pretty good. Everything is set up. Now I'm going to use our little control here to move it to where I want the hole to be. Let's say right about there. Okay? Now the neat thing about this is I don't have to set home again. All I have to do is click this start button. And you can see we've got 5 very nicely spaced holes, and we didn't have to write a bit of G-code. And all of that is just the first panel. So I'm really hoping you like these routines. So let me just show you one of the routines, and this is one of the simple ones. On the first tab, we go over to the left front, for example, and I want to find this corner, and I want this piece here to be centered directly over that corner, because in my drawing, let's say, that's my 0 point. Normally you'd have a lot of difficulty doing that. Watch this. You'll notice it'll touch once and then it'll come back and do it very accurately. And now it's centered. Not only is it centered, but it's also found the surface, and it's set that as the new home position. So if I tell it to safely go home, for example, and just to show you, I'm going to take it up a little bit here, move it over, you know, get it way out of whack. All right, and we want to return to that point. So all I have to do is click the Safely Go Home button on your new panel. And you're there exactly. Very useful routine. I've been using it quite a bit. So I'm hoping you enjoy these. Okay, so now let's look at one of the other routines, the hole routine. So if you go to the panel on the second probe, you're going to see this little guy here. And what it does is goes into a hole and measures it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of PVC pipe and I'm going to stick it on here like this and snug it down. Alright? So now it's going to act as some kind of a thing that we want to bore out or whatever. So what I got to do first is we'll use our little panel here to adjust its position. And we're just going to bring it like over the hole and then down into the hole slightly. And that's probably good right there. Then I'm going to come in here to the probe routine and I'm going to hit the button. Now you notice it's touching each edge and finding a rough estimate of where it is. Once it has a rough estimate, it'll go in slowly. And now it's exactly centered. So the nice thing about this is if I move the machine out of the way, I take this, but let's say I bring this thing way out of position, right? And then I use the Safely Go Home button. Yeah, forgot to set the Z-axis before I did that. Home the Z-axis. Another 8 millimeters. That would have been really interesting. So, note, this one sets the X and the Y, but does not change the Z. So before you run this one, yeah, go in here and set your Z, and then do a Set New Home. Yeah, that way you won't do that. Actually, the other day, I should know better. The other day I did that and I was like 2 millimeters above was the home, and I kind of crunched it a little bit and had to rebuild the probe. So yeah, you got to be careful on this stuff. An E-stop button, the big red button, that is indeed your friend. Trust me on this. So yeah, so now that I've set that as the Z home, if I go off in any direction and then I run the safely go home, it'll do the X and Y, but it memorizes the Z and it'll stop safely. So yeah, before you run this routine, probably a good idea to bring the Z right down into the hole, then come over here and set new home, which if you look at the preview is going to make sure that all of these are set to 0 so that when you run the probe you won't have that issue. Now sometimes you'll put a piece of work in your machine, and let's say that you don't worry about this rough edge, we're just using this for an experimentation. But let's say that you mounted something in your machine and it wasn't exactly straight. This is exaggerated, of course, but not exactly straight. And if we go ahead and home this thing, bring it back down to the home position here, okay, you can see that if I go and move this, so we'll bring the Y forward a little bit here, and if I was to move this to the right like that, okay, so we're right here now, and if I bring the X forward, you can see it gets further and further away from the edge, right? So what do we do about that? Well, on the tab 3, that's what the angle adjustment's for, and I'm going to show you that right now. Check this out. We take the Z-axis and bring it down so that it's just below the surface and near the edge. All right? We go to tab number 3 and we hit front angle. Watch this. It very accurately finds the first spot, then it moves down a bit, and it's going to go and find a second location. Now that it has those 2 points, it can calculate the angle. Not only that, but what it does is it actually sets the machine's coordinate system so that it matches that angle. In this case, it says 13.05 degrees. So we're 13 degrees off. And normally, if I told this thing to move 100 millimeters over, it wouldn't be up against the edge. It would be way out here in space. Watch this. I'm going to go to MDI, and I'm going to tell it G0x100. And you see how it follows the angle that's in there. So that's one of the new features that I've added to the machine, and I think you're going to find that very useful. So it's, Alexa, what time is it?
It's 2:17 a.m.
Yeah, 2:17 a.m. So I've been working on this thing for a while now, and showed you most of what the panel can do. And there's a lot of routines I didn't show you. If I showed you every single routine, we'd be here for hours. But you get the idea. I put a lot of work into this thing, and it's really going to make it a lot more useful. And so I'm going to push this video out now. That's the one you're watching. And the next step will be to make the complete instructions and everything, verify that with Max, and then push that out, and you will be able to have your machine do all of these functions. So I'm very excited to give that to you as a gift, and I'm really hoping that some of you install it, test it out, like it, and I'd love to see some feedbacks and comments on that. Let me know that all these hours of working on it and video editing and everything are appreciated. So I'm going to go look at the inside of my eyelids. Have yourself a wonderful day. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.